Hey, what's up? Thanks for joining us as we start our special 2-episode interview with the lovely ladies of Proportion Productions, Georgina Jane and Sarah T. Cohen. If you aren't familiar with Proportion Productions, this company puts out a ton of films and still maintains high quality. While these actresses have both been in a ton of their films, you can catch them both together in the 2020 film Cupid, which we've talked about here on the podcast. With no further delay, here's part 1 of the double episode featuring Georgina Jane. And look out for part 2 with Sarah T. Cohen that's going to drop next week. Enjoy.
This is Joshua.
Hey, this is Dave.
And this is Brandon. And you're now tuned in to PBD Horror.
Hi, this is Georgina Jane. I'm a film actress known for Cupid, Don't Speak, and soon to be released Cannibal Troll. And you are tuning into PBD Horror.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Today we have Georgina Jane, UK actor. You might recognize her from the film Cupid, but also a plethora of other films. So, Georgina, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing well. So, Georgina, before we get started on talking about like specific films, I was really interested in this idea of the Proportion Productions, which looks like it was started by Scott Jeffrey and Rebecca J. Matthews. Could you tell us a little bit about what this production company is all about?
Yeah, so they're called Proportion Productions, as you said. And yeah, they're run by Scott Jeffrey and Rebecca Matthews. It's actually, when did I meet them? 3-4 years ago, 2017 or 2018. I'm so bad with dates. And I sort of came in on a project as a smaller role, just sort of like a day role. And that's when I kind of initially met them. However, me and Scott have quite a cute story. We go way back. So when we were 16, we were both auditioning for Guildhall Drama School. And we met at the gates and we were sort of lost and we sort of helped each other. Anyway, back then you sort of added anyone you met, even very briefly, on Facebook. So we added each other on Facebook. Obviously, we didn't chat at all for the next 10 years. So a decade goes past. I become a successful actress and he's a successful producer. So he starts posting stuff on Facebook. And then I was like, oh, hey, Scott, remember me from Guildhall? And sort of that's how we made another connection. And he was like, oh, I've got this small part in, I think it was Pet Graveyard. And yeah, so I came along and I did that. And then you sort of create like a rapport with them, and they sort of kind of use the same actors who they like working with, and they're lovely to work with. So I always love coming back and working on different projects with them. Yeah, I think Scott actually had me in mind when he was writing Cupid. He was like, oh, I've got this great idea. You'd be perfect for the role, which was lovely. I was like, oh, so sweet, someone writing a role for me. So that's sort of them in a nutshell. But yeah, they do project after project after project. They are amazing. I can't remember what magic number they're on for films, but it's something like more than 50 or 40 something. It's a lot. Don't quote me on that though. That could be wrong.
Yeah. When you go to their website, they have all their films like separated by genre, action, supernatural, whatever, and it's like overwhelming how many films they have, so it's pretty amazing. And I know that he's like still filming right now, so it's like he just keeps going and going and going.
Yes, yeah, I don't know, they're about to start filming something this week.
Yeah.
And there were lots of projects lined up when lockdown first happened. We were actually meant to go to Tenerife to film a couple of film projects back to back, but it didn't go to plan, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. And that's because of the pandemic?
Yes. Because, yeah. And I think a lot of filming changed for a while after that for them.
Sure.
Yeah. And then we managed to do Cannibal Troll in July when sort of things eased off and restrictions sort of eased. So yeah.
Very cool.
That answered the question. I hope that I do that thing where I'm sure there was a question and then I don't know what I'm talking about now.
That was a perfect overview of Proportion Production. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to. So for us, it was the lockdown was a lot different here. For us, we had a hardcore lockdown, and I was a trainer for a delivery company at that point. So I was working 24/7, but there was like no one out. And then all of a sudden, boom, restrictions were lifted after like 2 or 3 months, and then it was back, and then it was lockdown, then it was back, but I understand England was a lot different, or the whole UK really was a lot different than the United States. How does that really affect you and your acting over there?
I think it was sort of the level of constant uncertainty. It was never no decisions were ever clear. So we first went into lockdown, and it was like, oh, in 3 weeks we're going to review it. No one can see what I'm doing. I'm putting my quotation marks up. So you're like, oh, okay, 3 weeks, we can deal with that. And then they just kind of kept ticking over and keeping us in lockdown. And then they would change a rule, and we'd sort of, you'd be able to see like one person outside, and then you could go into someone's house, and then you could do this or you couldn't do that. So it was never ever very clear. So for the film industry, and for and theatre predominantly as well, it was just that uncertainty. It was like you couldn't make a plan. You could. I mean, you could plan to do something, in a month's time, and then they could turn around and change the rules, which they did a lot. I think that was really hard, because I think we pushed stuff back. Like, we didn't get to go to Tenerife, but then we were like, oh, maybe we'll try and do these projects in Scotland. But then their rules were really strict. So the filming just kind of got pushed back and pushed back. So yeah, it was tough. It was really tough.
Second part to that question, 2020 is great for me. Not only like financially, and I got to spend the whole year with my kids, but as far as horror movies go, I thought it was great because there were no big blockbusters that came out. So all these independent, lower budget movies really got to shine. And those are the films I love. Has that really helped you being in, and I don't want to say lower budget, but when there's a big difference between $18 billion budget, Avengers movie and Cupid, I'm just saying, has that really helped you propel up?
I think sort of kind of people watching it wise, because obviously like we've kind of been thrown into a world where the only thing to do, or to that people could do for the last year, was sit and watch their tellies. So I think people were maybe discovering these, running out. They watched all the blockbusters, they weren't making anymore, so they were like, next step is the indie films. I think we were discovered a bit more through that. So I think that did help. And I think, like you said, bigger movies weren't being made, so smaller projects that were kind of releasing their stuff. I know, was it Host? Oh, I never actually got to see it. Or Host, that was made predominantly like on Zoom, that did ridiculously well. And obviously they wouldn't have it if it was any other situation. So I think for the film industry that was able to sort of bend and sort of adapt to what the situation, it definitely helped.
I think I could listen to you say telly on repeat.
Telly. Is that not a thing you guys say? What do you say? Telly.
TV, television.
TV, telly.
But it just sounds so crude when I say it.
That's awesome. Freaking Dave.
Yeah.
I grew up listening to you, like not listening to you, but I've learned a lot of I'll say English slang.
English.
So when you start talking it like, I don't say it, but I immediately know what you're talking about. So.
We say some things are different things, like trash is probably the most obvious one I can think of, and rubbish.
Rubbish, yeah.
When I was a kid, anybody that pissed off my godmom, they were a cunt. No matter who they were.
Whoa.
Oh, that's a really horrible word.
Is it? Oh, I thought in England, like, it was the thing that they were like, bloody hell, you fucking cunt. And everybody.
Interview over.
With the
we do say it a lot, but it's like the top of the swear word pile.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to offend you there.
No, I'm not offended. I'm not.
Like I said, growing up, I was just like, according to them, a wee lad. So I was just listening, and I thought that was common talk. I'd never been there, so let's change the subject real quick so I don't offend anybody else.
Sorry, guys.
So I watched the Witches of Amityville Academy, which was pretty cool. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And I was also pretty upset that you got killed off fairly quickly, even though you came back. So what are your thoughts on that film? And why did you get killed off so quickly?
I mean, it's an absolutely brilliant film. And I think, with the popularity of like Sabrina at the minute, I think it's just something everyone wants to watch. Everyone loves a witch academy drama. And there's that new series, Winx, which has got that same sort of like academy vibe, a bit like Harry Potter, I guess. But yeah, no, I think it's great. And I think, there's lots of great gory moments. And I think that's what excited me most about this. Scott was like, how do you feel about this little role? Looked at it, saw the death scene. I was like, yes, I definitely want to do this. I was like, slit my throat. This sounds great. So that's tend to what I look out for when Scott sends me stuff. I'm like, oh, how if I die, how do I die? And is it good? So, there's being killed off is, sad. Boo. You can't be in the sequel. But or am I? Maybe I come back from the dead. Yes.
You heard it here first.
But yeah, like I had a slit throat sort of effect before. So it's actually really sort of exciting to get done. And it was a really good one. Because they had this like just spluttered out so far and for so long, and there was just blood everywhere. It was brilliant.
That's awesome.
It was definitely a good kill scene, I gotta say.
So that's gonna.
I like a good gory moment.
That's gonna bring us to another film that we were able to check out of yours, Pet Graveyard. I really wanted to ask a question. So I think you might have cleared some of this up when you were talking about Proportion Productions, but I like looking at the cover before I knew anything about that production company. My initial thought was that this was a take on another popular mainstream movie, which also has pet in the title and a version of a graveyard. So I was curious, was that like the initial title of the film when they were going into it, or was it something added on because of the popularity of the other mainstream film?
I think it was called, I think it was called something else when we were first filming it. And now I can't remember off the top of my head. What was it called? It was maybe Grim Reaper.
Okay. Like which would make total sense from the film.
Reaper, I think. Maybe it was a bit of an advertising thing there to help the film, but it always works. So it had a creepy cat in.
Exactly. And like looking at now that, the Proportion Productions, it looks like that is kind of a theme with their movies. And we'll talk about that with a couple of the other films, just kind of like tying into other popular mainstream ones. But this was an interesting film. There was a lot of different concepts that I really enjoyed. But for your role in particular, you got to play what we would call like a doppelganger, like an evil version of your character from on the other side. So you got to play a character who was like a seductress and a demonic person in the same. So was that challenging for you to play those? Like, do those fit into your real life personality at all, and this was just fun, or was it a little bit of a challenge?
I would say, that was probably the most challenging character out of all the ones I've done for Proportion so far, because it was the most far from myself. Because she had, like, when Scott showed me the costume, I was like, really? I was like, it was just so not me. But I knew it worked for the character. It was, and I think she sort of had to have that sort of slightly sexy vibe about her to sort of gain the trust. Like they were like, oh, this is, it's a dead ex-girlfriend, and there's nothing untoward about her, until it goes on and you realize that, something is awry, basically. I did find I had to wear really high heels, and I don't wear high heels. I was like, and there's a shot where it's just like me just walking in slowly, and I was so worried about like going over on my ankle. But there was a nice demonic moment, just loads of blood in the mouth, just kind of. So it's really fun because you don't get to do that hardly ever. So when you get a moment just to kind of, and the good thing about Proportion Productions, they sort of let you if you've got an idea, if you've got a way of doing something, they sort of let you go with it, and sort of encourage that, if that makes sense. So they were like, yeah, just go with it, see what you do. So I was just able to sort of play in the moment of being a demon, basically. It was great.
It definitely looked like you were having fun, which is what made me want to ask you that, because that, especially that last scene, like you said, with the blood dripping down, I can't remember what you were saying over and over, but it just looked like you were really enjoying yourself. So I was like, that must be fun to do that.
Yeah, it's fun. It was fun.
I also wanted to ask you about this idea of brinking, which is the idea of dying in order to reconnect with lost ones and then being revived, which is the main theme of the film. So that's a pretty dark concept, and it made me want to ask you, would you brink?
Oh, good question. I mean, I think I play life safely. I like to not be too dangerous. So unless I was really desperate to see that loved one, like it was tearing me apart, and I knew it would definitely work and it was safe, and nothing would. I don't think I would. No, I just think like if you stop breathing, then you're dead, right? But
right.
I guess there was like a time limit, so they weren't really dead, and then they came back. But I think, playing with the dark side, I mean, you're asking for it, aren't you? So I don't think I would.
Yeah,
I'm a wimp.
I would probably not either. But mine for a little bit of a different reason. I feel like if anyone were going to have it go wrong and not be revived, it would be me. So that was like the main thing. I was like, oh, that timer would go off, and then I'd be so stuck in something that they wouldn't be able to bring me back. And then it would be like, everyone would just now someone's charged with murder because they put a plastic bag over my head, and it would all just have a big trickle down effect. So other than that, if I knew it was going to go well, I might try it.
I think originally that was going to be being submerged in water, and I think there were technical things tend to change.
Sure.
On when you get to the actual filming. So I think the maybe first draft was being submerged in water rather than the plastic bag thing. But I think that worked quite well.
I thought it was pretty effective. And that whole scene of them actually like doing it, I was like, oh man, this is kind of creepy. Like I don't know if I could. I would be fighting too. I know that like feeling of like catching when you're like can't breathe. I would be fighting that person so hard when they're holding that bag. So that was another thing. But that was a pretty cool scene.
Yeah.
I'd do it in a heartbite if it was for my kids or something.
To see them again. Yeah.
Or even my wife, as long as it didn't hurt my wife. She's my yin to my yang. Without her, I would fall apart. So I'd be, and I was trapped under ice once. I hate water. But if I had to, like just to see my wife, I'd drown again. I'd take it.
I'd take your big heart, Josh.
Not really. It's more like I can't survive without her, and it's more like I need that crutch. And I love her too. I'm not gonna lie. So
I think that would have been a nice storyline in the film. A man wanting to see us. That was sort of similar to the one I was in, but it was newly fiancé.
Yeah.
So it's amazing what you do for loved ones. When it can get really crazy really quick. I've noticed. Especially with children, you like bend over backwards for my kids and literally adjust my whole life for them. So anyway, so back to another change of pace here. You were also in another really good film that I saw. I really liked. It was called Virtual Deathmatch. Yeah, your part was small, but at the end, it was really like you set like your one line set tone for that whole film. I thought. I think that one twist at the end was like literally the most instrumental part of the whole film. So I wanted to get your thoughts and opinions on that.
Yeah, it's interesting playing those parts that, on paper they seem small, but then when you actually see the film, they're actually really, really important. Like, Sarah was fighting for her husband, and she knew she had the support of her sister, and that love kind of got that character through the film. And then I'm rooting for her even though I'm not there, and then I come up at the end and have to break the news to her, and it's just heartbreaking. I feel like I'm giving spoilers away for those who haven't seen it. Ooh.
Oh, we should do a spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler.
But your acting was spot on. I thought both of you,
Thank
you turned the tears like it was literally like it could be camera work, like I don't know, but I was like, wow, that was like unexpected. I wasn't expecting it, and then it was just boom, here it is, and I was like, damn. So that was very well done.
Thank you very much. That feels like ages ago, that film. A few years ago. Film maybe 2 years ago. Again, bad with dates.
I just want to throw in a quick question because I did look on IMDb and you were in a television show, which I had never heard of. And I was curious, doing film and doing movies, from what I understand, is completely different. How was that transaction from doing like a TV show to film afterwards?
I think it depends on the role and the TV show, but I think from my experience, TV shows are like happen a lot quicker. Like it's all like bam, 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 bam. I think the show I did, I was only there for like not even a day, like maybe 3/4 of a day, and it was all very quick. But yeah, again, that completely depends on the TV show and the role. But I think from like an acting point of view, working on a TV show and a film would be the same process for me. Like I'd approach the character and all of that the same way. But your experience of how the filming goes can be quite different.
So I wasn't lying when I said Josh and I literally binged your movies. So the next one I'm going to ask you about is Don't Speak.
This is great fun for me. I'm loving
okay.
this.
So so Don't Speak was a monster movie. So there's this scene in particular, though, I think it's about midway in the film when you discover the monster and you're attacked, and basically you're attacked and on the run through this whole scene. And I wanted to know, like, kind of what's the most challenging part of doing a scene like that, where essentially you have to channel like the emotion of terror and anguish?
It can be really tough, but I will say that Don't Speak, out of all the movies I've worked on, hands down was my favorite. Like, it was just the most fun. But yeah, those scenes, they take a lot of energy and a lot of sort of focus, because you can't pretend like to be scared. Like, I know acting is pretending, but you sort of have to feel that fear and that adrenaline to kind of portray the emotions like honestly. So yeah, doing that takes a lot out of you. Like, at the end of the day, you're like, I'm exhausted because I've been like on an adrenaline high like all day, like running from a monster. Yeah, so it's really exhausting.
I can only imagine. And also just like having this ability to like channel these emotions without the actual element of whatever is causing terror or fear to be real. It just seems like it would be so challenging. It's almost like, in a scene where you have to bring on tears, but I almost feel like tears would be easier to like fake than sheer terror and panic. But you did an amazing job, because I mean, there was definitely sense that there was, the fear that you were feeling was there. And those monsters are super creepy looking, so I don't know what they looked like on set, but in the actual film, when you're watching it, they're pretty effective.
I mean, yeah, it was like, yeah, sometimes I was genuinely like scared, but obviously I knew it was just a man in a suit. But it looked, from a distance, like when I'm doing the scene and he's in my eye line, I kind of put myself in that moment of, what would I do if I turned the corner and I saw a creature like that looking at me? And that's the sort of thought processes you have to go through in order to sort of create that realistic emotion. Like, how does it feel when you see a monster that you've never seen before? And it was, as it got darker as well, it got a bit scarier, and you just turn around and AJ would just be there, like in the mouth. I'll be like, oh, just making me jump. Like,
another thing I want to ask you. So, like, much like the other proportion production films that have a clear relation of their plot to other mainstream films, like we talked about, just kind of maybe like for advertising, this one with the way the monsters hunt revolves around sound, in that they don't have sight, but they rely on hearing. So we've seen this a few times before. I'm assuming like around the time that this came out, it was also like A Quiet Place, it obviously it gained a lot of attention, and other movies like The Descent, which has blind cave creatures. I'm not sure if you've seen that film before. And also like The Silence, which is another film on Netflix that has creatures that react to sound. This is like it seems like this is a pretty popular theme with monsters. But I want to ask you a question. What do you think would be more terrifying for monsters? Ones that can only hear their prey, or the reverse, monsters who can't hear but could only see their prey?
I think it would be easier to escape a monster that can only hear you, because you have the element of like that whole first scene when I see the monster. If he could have seen me, I'd have been buggered. I'd have, he'd have got me straight away. But because it was sound, you just keep quiet and sort of creep away and hope that they don't hear you. You've got a slightly better chance of survival. Not the case for me, but spoiler alert. This is going to be terrible.
It's okay. We'll totally announce spoilers before we put this out.
I've already seen the film, so it's okay.
Oh, phew. But yeah, I think I'd rather that the monster can't see me but can hear me. What about you guys?
I was thinking the same. I actually looked it up and I couldn't find anything, but I looked it up really briefly. I was trying to see if there was a movie where it was the reverse, and I couldn't think of any off the top of my head. I didn't see anything immediately. I just feel like it would be terrifying if you had to find a way to always be behind them or something like that, because otherwise you'd be dead. I also think it might be an impossible movie to make, so maybe that's why they always go with hearing. So I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
How about you, Josh?
It depends on the hearing. I can camouflage pretty well. I have a face for podcasts, so if I was in the woods, I'd just blend in, like I would look like an animal or something. So, but if they had super hearing, I breathe, my heart's beating, I'm running, like I make noise. I am the loudest of the loud, and I'm not exactly light, so I'm heavy on my feet. It's almost 300 pounds per step. That's a lot. You know what I mean? So chances are, if somebody could hear me, I'd be dead in a heartbeat. But if they were looking, I could hide or blend in fairly easy. So there's my answer.
Josh, you're too hard on yourself, though, man. You said you have a face for podcasts, and broke my heart. And there's a reason I always call you the homeless Fabio.
It's a lovely beard, Josh. You should be proud of it. Is that a lockdown beard?
Yeah, it is. When the pandemic started, I grew my beard and my hair, and my wife, she despises it. But when I go out in public, I love it because I look homeless and people judge me right away. So if they talk to me, I know they're a good person. And if they don't talk to me, I don't need them in my life. So it has made all the difference this year. I can tell you, it's awesome.
So there you go.
That's it. There you go.
All right. So let's transition to the film that kind of initiated us wanting to get in contact with you. My first introduction to your films. And as Josh mentioned to you earlier, he had seen it like a year ago and really enjoyed it. So that we're talking about Cupid. I think we were kind of recognizing that it got a little bit of a recent boost of popularity, especially I think because of Valentine's Day. I know that it was like one of the first films that would pop up on my like Amazon Prime feed when they were like advertising for movies to watch. I think it's an interesting film because I feel like the cover art's a little misleading to what the actual film is. It definitely looks like this, like it's going to be just a straight on like monster slasher film, but there's actually some like really cool concepts within the film. The takeaway that I got from it as I left it, I was like this concept of the film being about the legend of Cupid, but then there's like this contrast to like issues that are present now. So we have like bullying, you got dynamics of relationships between students and teachers and boundaries. And then the idea of also like bullies actually being just like deeply wounded individuals themselves and not just being terrible people. So when I left the film, that was actually my bigger takeaway. So I want to ask you, like, what drew you into this film and wanting to do it? And yeah, just essentially like what were your bigger takeaways from it?
So yeah, like I sort of mentioned earlier, when Scott was writing it, I was already working with him on Don't Speak, I think. So he sort of had me in mind for Faye as he was writing. He was like, I've got this great character for you. And he was talking me through sort of the main plot of the film. And I think he also had Sarah in mind for the bully as well. So yeah, when I eventually got the script and read it for the first time, I think I would have to agree with you. What jumped out for me was the sort of depth, the detail with the characters and the writing. Like it really helps sort of deepen the audience's like sympathy to the character. So it's not just like, a monster going around killing people. You actually sort of feel sorry for the reasons behind why these characters are doing what they're doing. And everyone's been a school kid, everyone's been at school, and they understand like what that's like to be bullied, or what it's like to be the bully if that was you as well. So yeah, everyone could sort of sympathize with a character within the story. I think it might not necessarily have been Faye, but I know I experienced bullying at school, so I understood that sort of anger it can make you feel, and it can make you do stupid things. Like, yeah, she summoned a demon, but each their own. But yeah, I think the characters really drive the story. Obviously, the slashing deaths are great, but yeah, you sort of do we want the bully to be killed at the end? It's interesting. I know. Another spoiler alert. No, I'm not going to say. We don't know. Who knows? You have to watch it.
Right.
But yeah, it's just nice to see like a young person sort of working out those things. Like, like you said, the relationships with the teacher, like, that is an issue, and it's sort of figuring out those things as you watch it.
Sure. That was like when I saw them go into that part, I was kind of uncertain how they were going to go with the teacher, if he was going to keep his boundaries appropriate or if he was going to cross those lines. So it was kind of interesting because I wasn't certain how that was going to go. But I thought it was cool that the film was even allowing itself to go there in this, because like I said, you go into it and you're not sure, are you just going to get this straight up monster slasher film, or are you going to get something with a little bit more thought? And I think it did a really good balance of both. The other part I want to ask you about is so the idea of Cupid as an evil person is pretty unique compared to like what we think of like our hallmark character of Cupid. Unless one movie that we've talked about quite a bit on this podcast, Valentine. I'm not sure if you've seen that. It's a early 2000s slasher where the guy has a Cupid mask. So that's probably like the only take on Cupid that I've seen where he's killing people. I want to ask you what your thoughts are about the Valentine's Day as like this hallmark holiday, and if it was really the intention to set out for an anti-Valentine's Day film, which you even mentioned earlier. You said that anti-Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great. Like the minute Scott mentioned it to me, I was like, yes. Like I think it's so hard in the horror genre to almost find something that hasn't been done. I think that's really difficult. And I think it hadn't fully been done the way he told the story. So yeah, it's brilliant. Like it's something, it's a character that's so loving, that's meant to bring love, just turning that on its head and bringing the complete opposite, just bringing death and destruction.
Sure.
And ending love. But yeah, it's nice that for me, I like that it went back to the origins of the story and sort of showed you why Cupid went down, that why there was this evil Cupid. I think without that, it still would have made sense, but I think it was nice to have that sort of like, it came from, an ancient story that we sort of all know, but had a bit of a twist to it.
Yeah, for sure. And I also like, you had mentioned how your character kind of taps into this, into Cupid to kind of exact revenge. And it's almost like the idea here is bullying begets bullying almost, I guess in a way, or bullying kind of provokes people to like tap into a darker side of them. And do you think that's a pretty accurate connection to make, even based on like you had mentioned your own experiences with bullying?
Yeah, I think anyone that's sort of feeling pain can react in strange ways. You don't really think through your reaction. And I think, for Faye, she already had a lot of pain that was sort of pent up, that she was just sort of hiding. She'd lost her dad. She was being bullied. She didn't have a great relationship with her mum. She thought this teacher liked her and he didn't. So like, I think that was just the tip of the iceberg moment. Like, I think she was going to crack at some point. And yeah, it's nice to see what, a seemingly nice person can do when their emotions go awry. Like, she was into black magic, so obviously that maybe something dangerous was going to happen at some point. But I'm not even sure she thought it was going to work. Yeah, that's my opinion. I don't think. And then when it happened, I think she was like genuinely like, oh, okay, death's right there. Better say something.
Yeah.
I have an odd question. I have an accent, and I say things like used, and we don't say an R. Like I say use people or use guys. We don't say R's here. We say ka, Balinka, things like that.
Okay.
So you obviously have an accent, but then when you watch the films, you don't have that same accent. And I'm not an actor or an actress. Obviously, I have absolutely no acting skill whatsoever. But how do you get rid of that?
Well, do you know what? I think for me, general American, what we call the accent here when we learn it. It's sort of quite a big part of your sort of childhood and growing up. You watch a lot of movies and you hear it a lot, so you sort of have a good ear for it already. So yeah, I think sometimes I try and talk it in the accent between takes, and like if we're just kind of socializing, just to kind of get into it. But yeah, I feel like a different person when I watch myself in a film when I've got this American accent. Because my tone is different, everything is different. It's like, it doesn't sound anything like me. So it's really fascinating, and I just always hope that I do a good job because I've heard some terrible British accents in my time. So when you do a movie like that, when it's getting released in the US, you're like, oh, what if they see right through me?
So I'm a big monster fan. So can you tell us about Cannibal Troll coming up? Or is there anything you can tell us?
Oh, I should probably have checked with I don't know if I got
spill it all now. We won't say anything.
I won't give any spoilers for this one, obviously, because it's not been released yet. It's not being released till I think the late summer sometime.
Okay.
Yes, it's a monster movie. It's about a group of 5-6 girls that go on a hen do. So it's my character's hen do, and we decide to go camping in the woods. Lovely idea. Not my actual idea as Georgina Jane would want as a hen do. But anyway, my character was loving it. So yeah, we're out in the middle of the woods, come across this mysterious cabin, realize that a troll is living there, and the events ensue after that. And yeah, lots of running and screaming and near death.
Cool.
Not going to give away who dies at all. It's a great one though, and we filmed at the height of summer, so every day was really, really hot, and we were predominantly filming outside. So I was loving my life. Had a great tan in that movie. So yeah, for me, when I see all the stills, I'm like, oh, that tan.
So
it was really fun to film. We did it really quickly. Like I think it was 5-6 days. I think we did that one in.
Oh wow,
that's really quick.
Yeah, that's sort of a theme for Proportion. I don't know if I mentioned that. They film features in a ridiculous short amount of time. It's impressive. Don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
So you get very used to sort of, if it's a good take in one, cool, we'll take that. Sometimes you get 2. Sometimes you get 3 if you're really lucky. And if you keep getting wrong and they have to do more than 3, they're like, okay, don't hire this person again.
Right. They will not be back.
That's awesome. We just need you to clarify. I know what you're talking about. Other people may not. When you say hen,
bachelorette party.
Yeah,
is a hen party. Yeah,
that's so funny.
I know what a hen party is.
On the website, it says for hen, and I had no idea what it was talking about.
Oh, interesting.
So they might want to update that on the app.
That's
website.
A good point, actually. Yeah, because the Americans will be like, a what? A
What's,
chicken party?
Yeah, how does that connect? Like, what's the reference, hen to a bachelorette?
I don't know. Hen, like your stags and hens, like the boys go on a stag do. I don't know what is bachelor party.
A stag-a-do?
A stag, like it's in a like
a stag,
like the big deer, the male deer.
Yep.
A stag do, do, or a hen do.
Stag do. That's awesome. I'm using that from now on. Thank you.
This is the one time I know something that Dave doesn't know.
I have been to England though, so I have a one up on you, Josh.
Yeah, I have not. And
where in England did you come
London.
to, Dave?
It was a dream to go to London. While everybody was going to like Cancun for spring break, I went to London, and it was pretty
Nice.
chilly, but I was obsessed
That's-
with everything about England for a period of time in my life. I still kind of am, but it's like it's totally toned down as opposed to back then. But that was a dream, so
Yeah.
I tried to make that happen.
Yeah, it's far too cold here. Like it's still like 5 degrees, although I don't know what that is in. You guys talking Fahrenheit? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, 5 degrees Fahrenheit.
It's very cold here.
I will say it was dreary every day. So it was cloudy, drizzly, and that was exactly what I wanted. So that was actually awesome because that's kind of what I pictured in my head. So it like fit that to a T. It was awesome.
I've never been there. I've only seen pictures. And the pictures I saw were my godmom's town. She had pictures of her town up with all the cottages, but that her town got bombed, so it was like pre-bombing. So they were really old, like photographs of her town before it got demolished. So she said she would never go back just because there was nothing to go back to. But I always wanted to see because I heard stories when I was a kid. But I never went because, I got married and had kids instead.
There's still time.
On a brighter note, you have the Cannibal Troll coming up. Any other projects in the works?
I'd like to say I do, but because of coronavirus, I should probably finish that, coronavirus, it has slowed down a lot of stuff for this whole year. So where I did have sort of projects planned, or just sort of where things have slowed, there's been less things to sort of audition for. I'm actually currently on the hunt for a new agent. So I'm not represented at the minute. So yeah, that's a little bit stressful. So I'm sending a lot of emails and talking to a lot of people, and yeah, just trying to hopefully, Cannibal Patrol coming out in the summer will help, and Cupid and Don't Speak's coming to the UK some point this year, I think. Yeah, it's been tough, but yeah, I don't actually have anything on the cards at the minute. I have actually a few auditions rolling over as we go, but sort of long process auditions. So waiting to hear about a few things, but I can't say what. But yeah, did that answer the question? I'm not.
Yeah.
I wish I had loads more to say, like, oh yeah, I've done all these things.
One last real question here. You have done a lot of horror. Are you going to branch out, or are you going to stick with horror?
Definitely, like as an actor, you wouldn't kind of corner yourself in a box. It's not a very good thing to do. I think, if a project comes out that you're interested in, you would just do it regardless of the genre. So yeah, definitely looking to do sort of more stuff that's a bit more drama based. This year I've got goals. My goals get into sort of a Netflix series. So fingers crossed that I'll see that go through. But yeah, no, I'm open to any projects, like comedy. It was very different to horror, but I love it. Like I love a bit of comedy. You've met me now. I'm hilarious. Okay. I just laugh at myself, and I think that's my problem. But no, the answer to the question is I wouldn't just do horror. I'd definitely branch out and do lots of other lovely things. But I love horror. Like once you do it, you just want to do it again and again because it's just so much fun.
Yeah, I was curious about that. If you would change your path, the way that your path has gone so far, if you were able to redo it, or if you would keep it the same.
Yeah, I'd say I would definitely keep it the same. I think you learn a lot as an actor filming horror films, and they put you through your paces. You have to kind of do emotional highs. Screaming, running, crying, covered in gore. So physically and mentally, it's really challenging. And I love that. Yeah, I think you don't get that in any other genres, really. And I remember as a kid, it sounds really sad. I'd always be like, I watch these films and they'd be like running. I was like, oh, I just want to be in a film where I'm like running. Just seems really fun, like running really fast. And then when you're actually doing it by the 10th take, you're like, why can you just run there? Okay, yeah. So it's brilliant. It's good fun.
Well, Georgina, I appreciate you doing this with us, spending this time with us, but also just the fact that you were so willing to come on to this podcast and discuss, your films and everything. I know that we had a blast kind of, binging your movies and then being able to talk to you about them. So thank you so much for that.
No problem. No problem. It's a pleasure. It's lovely to just, talk about myself for an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Who doesn't love doing that?
All right. So just to recap, make sure you guys all check out Cupid, Witches of Amityville Academy, Pet Graveyard, Virtual Deathmatch, and Don't Speak. All fun and fine films. You can catch them on Tubi and Amazon Prime, I believe. And again, Georgina, thanks for joining us. This has been a blast.
No problem. It's been lovely. Thank you, guys.
No problem.
And I'll come back anytime. Maybe after Cannibal Troll comes out.
Yes.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
I think you'll love it. I'm excited.
Yes, absolutely. I look forward to that. So thank you. We will definitely be in touch. And to all of our listeners, have a good night. Virtual Deathmatch, Amityville, Witches of Amityville. What is the name of that one again? I'm going to edit that one out because I totally botched that one. Jesus. Wow. All right.
So it takes me from my childhood. And you very rarely hear it. You don't hear Josh,
You may know the woman that took care of Josh. Her name was Mary Poppins. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her.
I know her well.
Okay.
Right. I think it was just to widen the what's the word? Like, oh my god, I can't think of the word. Widen up the what's the word? Widen
scope, distribution, something along those
definitely
lines.
Edit that bit out. What is it? Yeah,
Yes.
like so.
Yeah, well, thank you again for doing this. I also appreciate the fact that whenever we go to England, you said that we could stay with you, so thank you for that.
Where?
Yeah, just
You
Josh
can come
and I.
stay in my huge mansion that I live
Yes,
in.
which we assumed you had, so you didn't know what you were getting into when you said yes to this, apparently.